This video is on properties of metals and nonmetals. So we have metals, nonmetals, and then there's something called a metalloid. These are all different types of elements on our periodic table, and most matter can fall into one of these three categories. Their state at room temperature for a metal is a solid. Nonmetals can be solids, liquids, or gases, and a metalloid is usually a solid. Luster is how shiny something is. A luster of a metal would be shiny. A nonmetal would usually be dull or have a matte finish. And a metalloid can either be shiny or dull. Conductivity. This has to do with electricity. A metal can conduct electricity. Nonmetals do not conduct electricity. They're considered insulators. And metalloids are semiconductors. That means that under certain circumstances, they can conduct electricity, and under different circumstances, they cannot conduct electricity. So they depend upon their environment, whether or not they can conduct electricity. Ductility. This means that I can pound them into a wire so that they can form a wire, or drawn into a wire. A metal we can turn into a wire, because we have our metal wires throughout our house, are ductile. Nonmetals are not ductile. If you try to put them into a wire, they crack. They're brittle. A metalloid is ductile. I can form my metalloids into wires, and they're used as semiconductors. Malleability. This is one we've talked about. That's if you are able to shape it into different forms or pound it into sheets. Metals are malleable. I can pound metals into different shapes. Nonmetals are brittle. They're not malleable. If I try to pound a solid form of a nonmetal, I would crack it. It would break. Metalloids are malleable. I can form them into different shapes as they're used as semiconductors. Reactivity with oxygen. So will something react with oxygen? Metals do react with oxygen. When they react with oxygen, they corrode. So this is like when you see rust on your cars. Nonmetals, some react with oxygen and others don't. It depends on the type of nonmetal that it is. Metalloids do not react with oxygen. There are a few exceptions, but most do not react, which is good because we use them as semiconductors. We can have something called an amorphous solid. This is a non-crystalline solid where atoms are not in a fixed position. An example of this is glass. An alloy is a mixture of metals, and it keeps the metal properties. So for example, brass is an alloy. It has the metal properties, and it's a mixture of different types of metals. Steel is another example. Conductivity. Conductivity is if it can conduct electricity or not, and this happens through the movement of electrons between atoms. So if these are metal atoms here, and I have an electron on the outside, my electron can easily skip from atom to atom to atom, and so on. And that's because if we zero in and look at what our atom looks like, we have all these negative parts and positive parts all around in our atom. So the positive things are protons, and the negative parts are electrons. Now electrons carry the electricity, so if I have lots and lots of electrons inside my atom, I can easily move my electrons around, and they can carry my electrical current. And this is something special that metal atoms have that nonmetal and metalloid atoms do not. So my charge is carried on the electrons.